We're going to start out with the newly buffed Hogar 556. Throwing the VT7 Spiritfire Suppressor for being undetectable by the radar, recoil control, bullet velocity, and damage range at the cost of aim down sight speed, aim walking steadiness, and sprint to fire speed. Next, throw on the 5.56 NATO high grain rounds. Now, if you guys don't want these, this is completely fine. You can throw on anything else, but this just gives it even more bullet velocity than it already had. Next, put on the 40 round mag. Now, in my opinion, I don't really recommend 20. I don't think it's worth it, but if you want to subset the VT7 Spiritfire Suppressor negatives, then you can put this on. Next, I put on a Mark III reflector, but honestly, you can put on anything that you guys want to. It's completely personal preference. And next, the RB Adult Assault Stock for recoil control and gun kick control at the cost of aim down sight speed. This is honestly one of the easiest weapons to use in the game right now. I would say it's actually better than MCW, especially after the buff. This thing is absolutely busted, and you're gonna just, you need to try this out. It's absolutely ridiculous, and if you want even less recoil, like I said, you can change it around. But here's the entire class setup right here. VT7, high grain rounds, 40 round, and Mark III reflector, along with the RB Adult Assault. Now, if you guys don't want the NATO high grain rounds, then most likely you can throw on the Cheerios 6 match if you guys want to, basically the same as a Warzone. But if you guys like this setup for multiplayer, then feel free to use this. Next is the brand new SOA Subverter. You guys have to try this out. Throw on the Shadow Strike Suppressor for being undetectable by the radar. Next, throw on the 50 round drum. Now, if you guys don't want this, you guys can use the 7.62 30 round mags, and honestly, you will have less negatives. I mean, it depends on what you think is enough bullets. In multiplayer, I think 30 is enough, but if you want to use 50, completely up to you. Next, put on the TAC Handler Grip for sprint to fire speed, TAC stance spread, the cost of recoil control, and flinch resistance. Last but not least, the HRT Low Precision Stock for aiming out of sway, firing, aim stability, and gun kick control at the cost of aim walking speed and movement speed. In my opinion, this gets the job done very easily. It takes very little to no effort, and if you guys want an even better build, then you guys can get something for less recoil, or we can do better movement. But I think overall, this build right here is absolutely fantastic and just gets the job done. So here's the entire class setup right here. Make sure you guys take a picture, screenshot, or whatever you have to do. The BP50. Start out with the VT7 Spiritfire Suppressor. It helps with being undetectable by the radar, recoil control, bullet velocity, and damage range at the cost of aim down sight speed, aim walking steadiness, sprint to fire speed. Now, it's honestly not a big deal. Lower 9 heavy barrel. This helps with bullet velocity and range, gun kick control, recoil control, and firing aim stability at the cost of hip fire and tac stand spread, aim walking speed, sprint to fire speed, and sprint speed. Put on the Brune Heavy Support Grip. This helps with gun kick control, aiming out of sway, horizontal recoil, and firing aim stability at the cost of vertical recoil and aim down sight speed. 45 round mag, because I think this is just the optimal choice. And last but not least, the Moat 40 stock for gun kick control, aim down sight speed, aim walking speed, and recoil control at the cost of firing aim stability, sprint to fire speed, and sprint speed with movement speed. This thing is actually ridiculously good and does not take much effort to use. It's actually ridiculous how good this thing is. It's a iron sight weapon that has practically no recoil. Like, I'm not even at 120 FOV, so people that actually play at 120 FOV, it's actually gonna look even more insane than this. But you guys see, close range is amazing, medium range is amazing, and long range is amazing. This is actually the same class setup I use in Warzone, and it's because in solos, this thing is an absolute monster. This is the only thing that you actually need. So here's the entire class setup for the BP50. If you made it this far, I want you guys to comment, I saw that. We're gonna trick everybody that actually doesn't watch the entire video, and it's gonna be really funny. Next is the Ram 9, and this thing is absolutely incredible in multiplayer and Warzone, so I have something very special for you. Throw on the Zemin 35 compensated flash hider. Now, this shortens radar pings, it increases the vertical and horizontal recoil control, and firing aim stability. Now, you do lose some bullet velocity and aim down sight speed, but it's not a big deal. In fact, if you look, the bullet velocity reduction is not that much. It's only a 5% reduction, and honestly, I think that you're not even going to notice it. Next, I put on the DR6 hand stop for aim walking speed, aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, and movement speed at the cost of hip fire attack stance spread, and aim walking steadiness. Put on a 40 round mag. Now, if you want to put on 50, that's all the power to you. I don't really think you need it. I think that thing shreds fast enough, so you can put on 40 and most likely wipe out at least half the team before you have to reload. I put on the Retort 90 grip tape for firing aim stability, gun kick control, and recoil control at the cost of aiming out of sway. And last but not least, I put on the HVS 3.4 pad for gun kick control, aiming out of sway, firing aim stability, and recoil control at the cost of movement speed, sprint speed, aim walking speed, and sprint to fire speed. Honestly, this thing is ridiculously easy to use. It's a super powerful weapon, and honestly, even at long range, if you just burst fire, it's like, look how fast that actually takes the enemy out. They're not even going to be able to react in time by the time you actually try to shoot them. So this is overall a fantastic weapon. You burst fire for the long range, and you can continuously fire short to medium. It's just, honestly, I would say the best weapon in MW3 right now. But I mean, that's my opinion. You guys can choose whatever you guys want to as the best weapon. But here's the entire class setup right here. I highly recommend, please screenshotting this, using it at least once. I know you guys are going to do really good with it, and you're going to be shocked at just how amazing it is. Next is something you got to really hear me out on, but it is absolutely insane: the KV inhibitor. Start out with the Shadow Strike Suppressor L for being undetectable by the radar with absolutely no cons. Next, put on the .338 Magnum high grain rounds with bullet velocity and damage range at the cost of some recoil control, which is not a big deal. You won't even notice it. Put on the 5-round magazine. This helps with movement speed, aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, and reload quickness, but you do lose magazine ammo capacity. If you can go without this pro, then you can just go without this, but trust me, I think you want to have these pros. Next, put on the broadside factory grip for sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed, aim walking speed, and movement speed at the cost of gun kick control and recoil control, not a big deal. And last but not least, the Ivanov Woodstock for aim down sight speed, firing aim stability, movement speed, and sprint speed at the cost of aiming out, sway, recoil control, and gun kick control. This is absolutely insane. It takes very little effort to actually use this weapon. Like, it's absolutely busted and takes very little effort. So here's the entire class setup. Make sure you guys copy this down and give it a try at least once. It has incredible range, and it basically one-shots from every distance. Next, the fan favorite Wasp Swarm. Make sure you guys have a class set up for this. Go on the L4R flash hider for muzzle flash concealment, recoil control, and gun kick control at the cost of aim down sight speed. Next, put on the Wasp Reckless 90 long barrel for bullet velocity and range, aiming out of sway, gun kick control, and recoil control at the cost of aim down sight speed, hip fire attack stand spread, aim walking speed, and sprint to fire speed. Put on the Brune Heavy support grip for gun kick control, aiming out of sway, horizontal recoil, and firing aim stability at the cost of aim down sight speed and vertical recoil. 100-round drum is controversial. I mean, I like using this, but some people could go for the 50 or 40-round mag. Completely up to you, whatever you want to use, but just be aware of the cons. Last but not least, the FSS Rampage 7 Tactical for aim down sight speed, aiming out of sway, and firing aim stability at the cost of aim walking speed and movement speed. This SMG is super easy to use, especially at close range and medium range. I wouldn't try to go beyond that just because it's going to be a little bit harder to control the recoil even with all the bullets, but if you can handle it, be my guest. Here's the entire class setup. Make sure you guys copy it down, and if you guys haven't already, please give it a try. If you made it this far in the video, I want you guys to comment Uzi. Now, I know this isn't technically an Uzi, but I want you guys to comment Uzi. And now another thing I need you guys to hear me out on. You guys see the Ram 7 all over Warzone, but for some reason I don't see it so much in multiplayer. So this class setup is going to give you an advantage over the enemy. Put on the Caster's Brake for horizontal recoil and firing aim stability at the cost of aim down sight speed. Put on the Cronin Headwind Longbow for bullet velocity and range, aiming out sway and firing aim stability at the cost of hip fire attack stand spread, aim walking speed, and sprint to fire speed. The Brune Heavy support grip for gun kick control, aiming out sway, horizontal recoil, and firing aim stability at the cost of aim down sight speed and vertical recoil. 40-round mag, I just don't think you need 60 in multiplayer. I think 40 is more than enough. And last but not least, the HVS 3.4 pad for gun kick control and recoil control at the cost of sprint speed and sprint to fire speed. This weapon is ridiculously easy to use in multiplayer. Like, in my opinion, it just will honestly get the job done super quick and super easy, like you saw right there. Here's the entire class setup right here. And just please give this a try. I don't really see why anyone would try anything else when this is the most dominant long range weapon. Actually, it's pretty dominant in all ranges. This is like the most versatile weapon overall, and you could make it an even more speed build if you wanted to. You could probably take off the Cronin Headwind, but I mean that's completely up to you. You can change it in any way, shape, or form that you want to make it more optimal for speed. You just gotta optimize it yourself. Next, for competitive, I mean the Rival 9 is a given. I have to give you guys this class setup, and I mean this is honestly the best choice for competitive. Go on the L4R flash hider for muzzle flash concealment, recoil control, and gun kick control at the cost of aim down sight speed. I don't really think there's any better alternative. I think this is the best possible choice. 9mm high grain rounds for bullet velocity and damage range at the cost of recoil control. Now, this is the multiplayer side. You can put on a 40-round mag if you're playing multiplayer, but if you're not playing multiplayer, I do have an alternative for you. Throw on the Rival Vice Assault Grip for gun kick control, firing aim stability, and recoil control at the cost of aiming out of sway. And last but not least, MTZ Marauder Stock for gun kick control, aiming out of sway, and firing aim stability at the cost of aim walking speed, movement speed, hip fire attack stand spread, and sprint to fire speed. Now, this is how it's going to feel when you're actually playing multiplayer. It's actually incredibly good when it comes to, multiplayer. But the downside is this right here. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to actually win your long-range engagements, which is why I do have an alternative for you guys if you guys are not playing multiplayer. The only thing you're going to need is the Brune Heavy support grip. Throw this on, go into the firing range. Absolute laser. Gets the job done super easily. So this is the competitive mode if you guys want to actually use this. Also, if you guys want less recoil, you can just take off the high grain rounds, but I think that you should keep them on. I think they're pretty ideal. Next is an absolutely amazing SMG to use in multiplayer, the HRM9. Go on the L4R flash hider for muzzle flash concealment, recoil control, and gun kick control at the cost of some aim down sight speed. Go on the Thorn 90 barrel for hip fire and attack stand spread, aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, and sprint speed at the cost of aiming out sway and recoil control. X10 Phantom 5 hand stop for sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed, vertical recoil, and gun kick control at the cost of hip fire and attack stand spread and horizontal recoil. 50-round drum because that's really the only choice that you can put on. I don't recommend 20. It's just not worth it. And last but not least, the folding stock for recoil control, gun kick control, and firing aim stability at the cost of some aim down sight speed. This is honestly one of the easiest SMGs in the game. Only downside is I would say watch out for that initial kick, because that initial kick can get you in trouble. Now here's the entire class setup. Make sure you guys copy it down. It's such a beautiful weapon. It's super easy to use in multiplayer. Now you guys know we had to save the best for last, the MCW. This is still meta, and this is still the best class setup that I can possibly give you guys. They're on the 16.5 MCW Cyclone Long Barrel for bullet velocity and range, aiming out of sway, and firing aim stability at the cost of hip fire attack stand spread, aim walking speed, and sprint to fire speed. Trust me, this is the one you want to have on there. Next are on the 5.56 NATO grain high rounds. Next are on the 5.56 NATO high grain rounds for bullet velocity and damage range at the cost of recoil control, but you're not going to notice this because this thing has 0 recoil. 40 round mag, I don't recommend 60 unless you want more cons. I think this is a good medium to 40, and you can still get the job done and wipe out the entire team. RB Claw PSL grip for firing aim stability, gun kick control, recoil control at the cost of aiming out of sway, not a big deal. There's just no better alternative. This is the best possible choice. Now this one's a little bit controversial. I like the Mark III reflector, but I also like the Niter. But the big thing I will say is the slate reflector. The slate reflector would be the best possible choice. I think that it actually helps the best. It gives you the best line of sight. So slate reflector would be the overall best choice. This thing is super busted, super easy to use, does not take much effort at all. Like, it really doesn't. It's just an absolutely busted assault rifle. I mean, when you think about it, this thing is the ACR, so it has the right to be absolutely broken. It's just an absolutely amazing weapon. But here is the entire class setup. And if you guys have made it this far in the video, I want you guys to comment ACR. I'm going to shout out some of you guys in the next video.